This podcast is a Tom production recorded on Aboriginal land. Hello, you guys. Welcome back. It's about time that I jumped on the pod and chatted to you guys about what is going on inside of the business and how I am working through it. I think that you guys have probably had some pretty amazing glimpses into what's been going on just from me like speaking to guests about it or having a bit of a rant and then saying I'll get into that in another episode. But this is an update that I think I wanted to do to more even like solidify the way of thinking to myself than to do it. I'm going to vent basically, and I'm hoping that you guys can relate and we can work through this one together. There've been a few moments of panic that I think you guys have probably picked up on of late where I'm talking about ambition and like, am I in a cage? What do I want? Am I where I thought I would be? What kind of a life do I want to create? Is this reality that we've now landed ourselves in, is it all that we thought that it would be? Is it all that it's cracked up to be? Is anything ever as cracked up as it is to be? Because like your opinion of where you thought you would have been, or like your projection or ideation, imagination of where you thought that you would have been maybe is a lot more glossy than the reality of what's really going on. But I think that that's just an element of growing up and of time. As I step into the rooms that I'm in now, I'm really, really proud of myself, but also I'm very much cup half full minded quite naturally to be like, okay, and the next and the next and the next. But then how appropriate is that in the day to day when the goal here is to be happy and sustained? So I've been really reflective on that. And I think a lot of elements that are a bit of a broken record for me are, okay, how do I build a business that I could eventually have kids and I could move through this properly, building a team and plan it? I think after COVID, so many elements of my life lost control that I've been overcompensating with control. And that's definitely an element that I'm battling with of like, okay, well, I can plan this, I can plan everything, and like nothing ever goes to plan. So why do I think I can do that with like my life and like a potentially new role in my life, like motherhood? The second part of it is ambition and the idea of being caged and the reality of that, of living in Australia, interviewing international guests, and just kind of what that dance looks like. Hiring. I've been through the ringer of late since June. My world got kind of turned upside down. I'm only speaking about like an assembly of 3 to 4 people, really. But now that assembly is just changing, and it has changed. And I hope that we're now like in a more solid state, but also the launch of Remy. I had a podcast guest on this morning and we were talking about it, which will come out soon, about how we just have this energy of like thinking that we can do it all and giving our energy and spreading ourselves too thin and jumping the gun and chasing that like new exciting thing before we've actually solidified the foundations. And then it also just reminded me recently, a client, a multi-million-dollar, billion-dollar even client, was talking about how they want to expand into new countries, but they don't have their own foundations set yet. So why jump the gun? It's going to make everything way too frantic and like that startup cowboy energy. Why not treat it slow and steady, fix a few things up, make sure that everything is foundationally great, and then build on that? And that's something that I'm really having to harness in and not get too excited or too rapid and spontaneous. I really chase spontaneity in my creativity, and that can not waste time, but it's not thought about and it's not aligned to a profitable, meaningful, slow growth. I've had enough conversations now. This will be 112 of the podcast episode. I've had enough conversations now where I know that slow and steady wins, period. So many incredible guests have come on and spoken about straight out the gate, they're a bull in a china shop and it didn't work. Things fell apart. They burnt relationships and burnt bridges, and slow and steady is the way to win. Also on this conversation that I had this morning, we were talking about how a big dog had told him before, business only really starts in the 10th year, which is fascinating. But we also get tripped up because we compare ourselves so much to people that have only been in business, for example, 3 years, and they're already hitting these like epic milestones or whatever. But I am not them, and my journey is not their journey. And we've got to work through these things and treat them really holistically to ourselves. So I've been almost trying to predict and trying to be a bit more like self-aware in how I am. And is this an idea that's rooted in strategy, correct timing, patience, and it leans towards our goals? Or is this an idea that is exciting, flippant, almost like lustful? Like, you know how when you're in a relation, like when you start seeing someone and it's like full of lust, is it that? Because there is so much happening right now. Even I just got off a call with Nadine, who is my new manager. So exciting. We'll talk about that in a minute. But we were talking about events in Sydney, and I was like, well, should I be spending time in Sydney and flying up for that? And there's one event in Sydney that's pretty important, I'd say, if I was in Sydney to go to, but is it worth going up to Sydney to get it? Or is it really going to move the needle? Or do you just pass on that and stay grounded in the day-to-day and don't run too hard at it, just run steady at it? And that's something that I'm really having to carry into what we're on now. So a few things. Mon is my full-timer. You guys know this. I've mentioned it a fair few times on the episode now. She came across from Unison. She started working with me for the podcast for partnerships on a great achievable hourly rate plus commission. She was doing this like on Saturdays and after hours just to kind of keep interested. She really wanted to work together. She listened to the podcast, admired what I was doing, and then we worked together enough. She helped me plan the 100th episode party, and then she said she was ready to leave Unison. She did about a month's work for me, and then she had already booked a trip to Europe for a month with her friends and her boyfriend. I obviously let her go. She went for a month and she got back on Monday. So by the time you listen to this, it'll be like 2 weeks. So she did that. And when she was away, she sort of maybe worked like a few hours a week, just kind of keeping things ticking, being across things, but not really. And she's come back, and I have said this week is only Anko. That's all it is. And next week will be Remy, but this week is only Anko. And we're really looking at purging every single piece of me, of what I can get out that I do, putting it into systems and processes, but also asking her how she wants the system and process to work and breaking it down. And then she kind of writes up the SOP, system and process, and then it's there. And she now takes that on and it's in her wheelhouse to run. We have let her create like a critical path, and she's the master of that critical path. Her role with me was PR and partnerships. It's now basically just brand manager. And that means it's loosey-goosey because it can go into like, are you the manager of the brand comms? Yes. But you're also managing the brand and helping move literally every piece along. I would say she's probably going to become a little bit more ops oriented as well because of her love of organization, but she is a gem. She loves the setup and how we're working, and she loves my dog, and it's a really great relationship. She's one of the most considerate people that I've ever met, and she wants what's best for me and Tyler and Cinema Tom and Remy and Process as badly as I want what's best for those projects. So it's a real pleasure to have her now home in the business, and we're ready to run at some shit as hard as we can. So we have that. This week on Tuesday, this has been massaged for a long time. I've been meeting with Nadine she was at Chic, then she had her own agency. She was a half partner and a co-founder, I guess, by them. And then she recently left to start her own agency called Witness, which is a talent representation company, but also content creators and like a content studio. There's like some VFX artists. There's other people in there that have total other strains of what they do other than just amplifying what they do. And working with Nadine is such a pleasure because everybody that I speak to about this, they just gush, which is so divine. everyone that hears a little bit more about, okay, and Toby, her husband, is a director at Finch, is like, oh my God, that's so great. Like, Finch is one of Australia's probably most prolific production companies. They do the big wig TV commercials, all of that, like the big leagues. I probably max out at budgets for about 150K. That's the absolute bare minimum that they would take. If that, they would be at like at least the $500,000 to many, many, many more millions of dollars. They are very, very highly acclaimed in the industry, and it is a pleasure to now be on the mind of somebody like Toby when he's in rooms that are speaking about social strategies and all of that. We have elements of Cinema Tom that Nadine's in rooms talking to brands about, oh, we need this, this, this. And she's like, oh, Arielle could do that through Cinema Tom. There's elements of our relationship where she would white label or subcontract or whatever Cinema Tom and partner with us with opportunities that she sources as a production piece. There's also elements for me to help Toby to come into their world at Finch and work with them on more social elements, similar to how I've been working with other production partners for much bigger brands. I come in at like a social level. So they've got all that social strategy kind of set, but then they've got these big, big pieces with creative agencies and advertising agencies. And then they're like, oh, but how do we break this down? And I call it the pulled pork method, where you get everything off the bone. How do you then make 40 TikToks out of that? How does the client get their money's worth? And then how do we make sure that also that director, that high-end director that is so good at the final 30-second piece, how do we make sure that he's showing up in social or she is showing up in social to make sure that firstly they win the job, but also that the whole holistic piece of the campaign is really worth every dollar and we're milking it. So the harmony that I think we have found within Witness is heaven. And I would think to be the perfect match. Now, in order for me to work with them in the influencer space as someone that has a podcast, can do brand deals, show up like that, we now need to go turbo on Instagram and show that we're making vlogs. This is what we're up to. We're traveling the world. We're doing all this stuff, blah, blah, blah. I don't traditionally have anything in place at the moment where I'm shooting stuff, hey guys, day in the life content, blah, 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 just because of pure capacity. But now I've got to make that a focus because working with a talent manager is something that I've wanted for so long. I don't want it to be a moment where, okay, I land there and it's not all it was cracked up to be because I haven't shown up in the way that I've said that I would. I think it's really obvious when you say like, oh, the Tom girls day in the life, you can imagine exactly what that would be like. We have the cameras, we have the editors, just ask them and pay them to edit that content. It wouldn't take that long at all because my team are very, very fast, but I have to move through that block now of I've got to ask the team now or build it into the strategy if I need help even talking about, hey, we're making content of me now. That needs to be overcome. So that is a piece that we are going to run really, really hard at. And it's something that's kind of on the vision board for us to work through, but work through as a team as well because of the banter and the antics and the global travel that's happening. There's a lot going on, and just documenting it is that extra layer on top that I think we really need to nail down. So the Nadine Witness relationship has literally just begun. It's really fun. I love it already. We've had like our monthly check-in call. I'm so excited. There's not a lot of stuff like right now that we're like, oh, let's pitch for that. But there are different things that we're definitely kind of wrangle some pitch decks together. She's going to send it over to some brands and see their appetite. We're sort of learning the appetite for me because I'm not like a beauty creator. Obviously, okay, let's talk to ABCD brand. I'm sort of a multi-hyphenate that's a little bit under the radar. So we're going to try and crack that open and see what we can do together. Then there is Remy. Remy's coming in hot. We've had a lot of changes with Remy, and the first one being the bottles. If you guys were so beautiful and supported the bottle purchase between launch in April to now, we will be sending you a complimentary brand new bottle because the gummies in the learning process, some things that I could have only learned if I held on to the product for 6 months, would I have learned what it looks like when you keep them for 6 months and you don't do anything with them. They stick together because it's a gummy. Cool. noted, we need different consistency and we need like a different like powdering layer. You can get different grains of powder. We now, I think, have a great grain of powder, but our first batch of delivery of bottles features a really fine powder that got absorbed too quickly. There was too much oil on the surroundings of the gummies and it meant that the gummies stuck together. Also, the bottle itself, the shape of it needs to be wider because otherwise you're trying to get your little fingies in there and it just doesn't work. So there's frustration that I've even felt, that I know that customers have felt. So we're changing some things up. Also, on that note, I'm playing in a space now that is potentially pharmaceutical in the growth of Remy. We want to be looking at magnesium and we are going to bring out like a straight creatine product. At the moment, we're focused on energy with taurine and carnitine, but that combo sits in sports supplement, happy for it to be. Then we have creatine, still sports supplement, but then by March next year, I'd like to be TGA listed and I'd like to move into magnesium, iron even, and then potentially move into the vitamins and stuff, because when I froze my eggs earlier in the year, there's a lot of stuff that I was told to take like for my follicles or whatever the fuck that means, that was in like a really hard pill to swallow, literally, like it was a gulper. And I just thought it was gross. How much more fun is that if you get to take a little fertility gummy? There's loads that I really want to get into. I also would love to do an app that helps people with what their literal body needs. I think that would be sick. So there's so much that I want to do and so much ambition that I have. But imagine now saying to Mon, we need a deck for the app. It's literally her, me, and Tyler 2 to 3 days a week. Mon's full-time, I'm full-time, obviously. What the fuck are her and I going to do with a deck, with an app, when we've got to service Anko, we have all the other clients that we still work for, we've got process on the side that I'm still trying to fight for my life to put up YouTube episodes of every single week. Like that is a pickle in itself. We're trying our best to get ahead with podcast episodes. Remy, the gummies are still on a ship for the new batch that's coming over. We haven't launched or nailed down the Instagram strategy for that yet, nor have I necessarily had time to, figure out what the tone of voice is and how I want to move through that. Creatively, every time I start Remy, I'm pulled back into client work. I have not nailed down each piece of the puzzle that is, I called trio of Remy, Process, Tom being the client work. Why would I make that even more complicated and try and start a fucking SaaS business app or whatever? So I kind of have to like get more familiar with my own brain and be like, this is a moment of lust. Wouldn't this be nice? It's like when you go to a vacation place and you're like, and you look on realestate.com and like look up how much places are there, because just you could buy something that could be amazing, like a new life, that sort of piece, like breaking life into tiers and being like, no, that cool, dot pointer, put it in your notes app, or have like tiers in the notes app, and you can give yourself permission to be like, okay, I've got tier 2, which would probably be the new year, and then tier 3 from March onwards. So say tier 1 is relaunch and the basics, but the basics really consistently. So EDMs and stuff. Tier 2, for example, would probably be more SKUs, TGA listing, and a journal kind of blog on the website, plus subscriptions, plus some other fancy shit. Tier 3 would probably be great stockists, landing the stockists for the seeds that we plant in tier 2, but then also to fit in with the TGA guidelines, you can only say certain things about what a product does, and you have to say that they like could do something. You can't say they definitely do something, or kind of in those kind of terms. So we have to spin marketing and we have to get really familiar with that and then embed that way of doing things so that we don't get caught out and then you lose your license, because it is quite risky. What you do when you're TGA listed is quite a little dance. You're dancing on hot coals of marketing. Marketing and TGA don't go together. TGA is Therapeutic Goods Association, by the way. So in my notes app in my phone, I've now got tier 2 ideas so that every time I'm like, oh, okay, the app, or, oh, that'd be amazing, I literally just put that in tier 3. And then my planning 30 days before, I'm like, okay, how have we gone with tier 1? Okay, cool. Now we're going to move into that. And that's kind of how we're making quarterly plans. But quarterly plans to me, my psyche is like, that's corporate terminology, gross. But tiers makes me feel a little bit more like Mecca Beauty Loop, like high school competitive nature. How are we going to get to tier 2? Like, how do we get to the next phase? Video game me. You've just got to pick your language. I know that's so granular into like my psychology, but whatever. I'm working out those pieces and figuring out how do we move through that. And then each day is sort of then created out of the tiers. So walking before you run is paramount in what the focus is for the next little while. But also taking this attitude has significantly improved my mindset and my working relationship with Mon, because she asks me for something, and instead of being like, oh, hang on, I'm just on another task, I can't get that to you right now, hang on, sorry, we'll do that later. But I've asked her and tried to delegate. My new mindset is, okay, you've asked me for something, that's going to take me 5 minutes to get it to you and hope that you understand it, or an hour for me to talk you through it, have you document it while I talk you through it, and then it can sit with you forever. I'm taking the latter approach, where I look at my calendar and I say, okay, I actually do have an hour after lunch. Let's put in a meeting about, for example, we did LED screens yesterday. LED screens is a huge piece of the work that we do. By the client and myself, it's treated like an afterthought for creating content for LED screens all over these shopping malls in Asia. Cool. Content is shot, set, blah, 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 and then it always has to go up on the campaign day. We're always scrambling for that. And it's something that we get paid for. There's a remit for it. Cool. So now by handing that off and showing her the logins, showing her the specs, showing her how I choose what goes in the screens, all of it was in my brain. We pulled it out. She created a spreadsheet for it. And now the entire process is documented, listed in Notion. And I'm hoping today she's put it into the critical path so that when we reach week 4 of October, we can be like, oh, LED screens are this week. Great. Do we have Tyler in to fulfill those needs? Cool. So then on week 3, we could be like, what's happening next week? Tyler, get on the blower. Hey, mate, we need you to come in. We've got work. Da-da-da. So that's the real kind of attitude of what we're up to. I'm also in the trenches figuring out what I want the podcast to move through next year. There'll be international travel for sure, but I'm also working out the guests, the style, and what I want a really successful podcast to look like, and the personal brand piece that works alongside that. What do I want it to look like, and how much time do I have to invest in that to make it look the way that it should look in my head? Because when you write creative strategy, you literally do this for other people, of course, but when it comes to doing it for yourself, you suck at it and you always put it off. I think by working with Nadine at Witness, there's literally no excuse. And if I put this off, it's going to be a crippling issue of like, oh, well, you didn't create the content about yourself, or, oh, you didn't make that a priority. And then that's on me. And I think, I'm not saying that like we're going to fail here, but it's a really great reminder whenever I go to be like, oh, fuck, I should make that video, to be like, you've got other people involved in this little goal of yours now. Like, this isn't a game. This is her livelihood. You can make money from it. This is an entire economy that exists. This is a big deal. You need to show up. And there's a disconnect for me there. I think I need to sort of move into treating it like a business, so that I can get out of my own way just that little bit more. Process, however, has been one of the most rewarding things I've ever done in my career, and finding my feet in the podcasting space means more to me than I thought that it ever would. So to keep going is really non-negotiable. Now that we're back to doing weekly episodes, I'm chasing my tail trying to keep up. But that's also about coming way back down to foundational levels. How do we make sure that this is an ecosystem that runs? So if I'm off doing something else, we can batch record, we can do all this stuff, and it can still exist without my input 7 days a week. What we are learning about process that has knocked me for 6 is that it has been the best way to build relationships and a seat for myself at the tables that I wanted to sit at. when you kind of imagine your career, I wanted to get into the fashion game of like, yeah, and I want to do Vogue covers and I want to do that. Not only did I want to be on the tools of those magazines, Fashion Brand Australian, you know, the it girls, the parties, the this, the that, the rooms and those rooms, I guess is the best way to say it. I quickly learned that you don't build friendships with those people by being booked by them to shoot a job, because those jobs are really high energy. They often don't really foster friendship like that. And it's different approaching, say, somebody like a magazine editor or something. If I'm speaking to them about, hey, this is my rate and our relationship has been like invoice based, and then I say, hey, I'd love to get a coffee, they're going to think, oh, she wants to catch up because she wants more work. Hang on. And then that's a different shift. But if I have a podcast and I am known for in-depth, good quality conversations about creativity, the doors that's opened to just have conversation with people and the coffees and stuff that have come from it, because it's created and I guess amplified a substance within me that people are much more open to sitting down with and forging a relationship with. It's a lot easier to get outfit loans. It's a lot easier to put myself out there to chat to somebody or shoot a campaign or whatever, not because I have the platform, but because I have another. Yes, I have the platform, but also the platform is very important because I'm not just like an influencer. It's not vapid, it's in depth. And I think a lot of people in the industry now are searching for that, like, oof, that drop in of like, oof, she means it. She's here. She's staying. So 100 and whatever, 12 episodes now, like this is something in the media that is sticking. And when I was at the podcast dinner that we hosted back in September, if you told me 3 months ago that I would host a dinner and I'd have Sarah Crampton on my left and Raquel Boris on my right, Lucy Asker from Mecca across the table from me, and Nadine, my new manager, 2 seats down, I just would have been like, what? And it's a real testament to showing up, because I think the industry's opened its arms to me because of the consistency and the quality, but also the realness. I think there's a lot of appreciation for that. But back to wanting to be in those rooms, there's such a nod towards hard work that's amplified out here that it has been the most incredible journey to get me where I wanted to go. It's just not the way that I thought that I would get there. I sort of look at like relationships, like for example, Bridie Gilbert and her relationship. She's a beautiful stylist that was at Rush for years. Her friendships and stuff like would be incredible, but really based on industry friendships are based on repetition. Now my industry relationships are built on a lot of people hearing my voice and hearing my candor and hearing the way that things work, and then kind of like familiar. Does that make sense? That's such a weird way to say it, but it's been pretty crazy. And I know that there's a lot of people like wanting to start Substacks or wanting to do something to get into that and find their voice. And I'm trying to work out how to help people that are interested in finding their voice to find their voice. Because like when we did the social summit in the audience, there was people being like, I kind of want to do this, but I'm just not sure yet. Like, there's, when you're on the other side of it and you're 100 and whatever episodes in, like there's something that I've walked that early phase walk and I know what that's like. So finding it and having the trepidation around it, but also knowing the landscape and being able to say, well, are you going to stick to that? And is that right? How does that feel to you? It's been interesting and something that I want to work through more. It's like how to help you guys find your voices if you wanted to start like a parallel something. So now with the podcast well and truly rooted back in the key priority lane that we're looking at, now I have to work on the priorities that I've set for myself, which are absolutely nailing down the systems and processes for Anko. We go back into learning about half 2 in November, half 2 meaning the second half of the financial year, and understanding their expectations from me and my team. We also will hear about new stores, new countries, all of that. And then taking that away and making sure that we are financially accommodated for that work. At the moment, there's a lot that I let fly under the radar just because I'm so grateful for the work, and also who else is going to do it if I don't. That's a very like founder entrepreneurs kind of thing, but it's also from the way that I was raised in hospitality. Of course, I'll pick that up and do it. It'd be rude of me not to. I've got arms and legs, but that's not necessarily how the agency life works. When people are like billing the hours, I'm like, oh wait, hang on, I shouldn't have done that. Like it is a bit abrasive. It's not aligned. So figuring that out, and also working through what I'm really good at for Anko, and making sure then that this is what I'm really good at and what the client loves me doing. What are all the other things that we do, and how can I then teach the rest of the team to do it? That piece is really important, I think, as well. Then we have process. What am I really good at there? And then what else can I bring the team around me to do without breaking the bank? For example, I had Tyler doing our bites, our like video bites the other day. It took him so long. Love you, Tyler. I know you're listening to this to edit it, but it took him a long time. Whereas Jeremy, another one of our editors, I think like literally 4 minutes. Like it was crazy how fast he pumped that out. I don't understand. He's a ninja. He's in the Philippines. I love him. We've been working with him for about a year and a half. He's a jet. And like I was shocked at just how fast he is. Why did I take that away from Jeremy? Probably because I was trying to like streamline it, but then I lost sight of the actual efficiency piece that exists within handing that to Jeremy. So there's a bit there to work through. And also with process, who am I just really curious about? Because I think if I force anything, you guys will know and I will know. And speaking to somebody for 90 minutes to 2 hours on stuff that I'm not interested in, the world's going to know. We need to get really clear on YouTube. Generative AI, when someone's like, show me a creative podcast, like what are some podcasts I should listen to? That we will be suggested if we win on YouTube. So the vlog piece, and building that holistic journey out and making sure that just that wheelhouse is all really tight. I've got the resources to do it, so why not do it? But not just do it well, and build the foundation for it to be done well. For the first time in my life, I was on a little baby vacay for the grand final weekend in the end of September. I went down to Red Hill, and when I was down there, I was like, when's my next one? And I booked in something for November to go back down to the same area, just a different Airbnb with a friend. And I really clearly am now booking in things every 6 to 8 weeks to be like, okay, micro holidays, just so that I don't burn out, but also I can keep my eye on the prize of what am I doing all of this for like a good life? Well, then let's actually like build the good life in simultaneously, rather than being like, I'll get there. I'll finally get to go to Europe and I'll put my feet up. No, there is no way you're going to put your feet up. You'll be on the grind, trying to do podcasts, try whatever. You can put it as a business expense. Like I'll fucking think of something to do. So really working that out. And then also defining lust opportunities versus strategic, real, move the needle stuff, and weighing that up. I'm really big on saying yes, like huge on it, but I don't think that that's going to serve me when we've got the eye on the prize. And I want to bring that kind of down to round out the episode for you guys. Like, what is your eye on the prize? And how do we create balance, but also say no to things that don't serve us and don't serve that, and also put into tiers. The tiers thing has literally like changed the game for me, because it's, yes, we are so like, if not now, when? Or like, no better time than now, or like, just start. Yes, 100%, but get your foundations right. And I think especially in this economy, it's almost a nicer way to go about rounding out the year, because we're about to get into the silly season. There is so much going on. There are a lot of events, a lot of opportunities, a lot of like alcohol, cocktail parties, meeting and greeting, all of that. Like, what's the real foundational things that we need to do to drive this business forward and see movement in it? Like what's going to really push things forward? Of course, consistency is the key. So doing what we're doing, but also what's really going to change it. Should I go to Sydney for that event next week? maybe because we might be shooting the Remy campaign up there, and there's a girl's face that I just absolutely love, and we might be shooting it in Sydney. But then again, that's also something I need to question. Do we need to fly to Sydney to shoot the Remy campaign? Could either she fly to Melbourne, or could I just use a Melbourne face for 3 months? And then once the business is off the ground, then we bring in a new face to the mix once we've actually generated some fucking revenue, you idiot. Like, do we need to do that? No. There's money in the bank. So I'm kind of like, ooh, let's spend it. Dole. Imagine I had shareholders, they'd be like, you're a fucking idiot. So the lust or the strategy, that's sort of what I'm playing with now. And I hope that that resonates, because it is really a time where we like shake things up. We get more creative, I think, at this time of year naturally, because we're like, yay. But also in my like burnout period, I think I want to be quite clear with the tiers as well, because then I can allocate more time to seeing friends or doing that and having a bit more like work-life balance. By just moving one single thing off tier 1, I'm going to be able to achieve a little bit more balance in my life than what I have been able to achieve so far, which is still important, because I don't want to look back at this time and be like, I wasted my 30s, like I was a robot. I definitely don't think that I am that, but I'm grappling with the fact that I do work a lot. So that's me. We're getting really good at Notion, and we're trying our best to be really organized. However, organization in itself takes time to nail down. So I'm trying to invest time in getting that sorted. I currently am working off of the Grace Beverly productivity method Notion template, which is a banger. I'll put it in the show notes for you guys. I have a referral code, and she's just launched some new notebooks, which I'm also obsessed with. So you guys can see those. And you're going to hear from me once a month now for Petites. The next episode that you hear from me will be an entire breakdown on how we are bootstrapping Remy. I'm really excited. I'm going to kind of share the lusty choices that we could have made versus the other ones, and what I'm trying to stick to, because I'm building live in public. I'm keen for you guys to like be able to hear what that is all about. You're also going to see me on Instagram a lot, because Nadine has now signed me. I better fucking show up. So anyway, have the best time in whatever you're doing right now. I hope your creative juices are flowing and you can be like, right, what is lust and what is strategy? I just made that up, but I think it works in the foundation of what we're actually talking about here today. So that's my mission for the rest of the month, whatever. This is the moment. This is what we're trying to do and achieve. Obviously, Remy is a lust project. I'm pretty aware of that, but there's a white space in the market and I'm fucking running for it. So while I've chosen to put myself on the line there, I will still be choosing strategy, not lust, and trying my best to build out what that looks like. It's also really hard because when you hear people like Raquel Boris was like, and then I flew to LA, and then Sophia Richie, and now we're killing it and make millions of dollars. You're like, damn it, you should just chase opportunities and say yes. But you can't do that for everything. So I'm finding the balance. Anyway, chat soon. Love ya. Bye.